Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Lemitz.
And it is the day before the election. We're doing a special edition episode.
In a very remote location, not to be heard of again.
A non-disclosed location.
Non-disclosed.
So
how are you feeling, Sean?
I'm feeling good. So I'm getting that question from everybody. How are you feeling? What's
your gut?
So I remain where I was before, which is it's either a narrow Kamala victory or a Trump landslide, and by landslide more than 300.
More than 300.
More than
going back to our podcast with Ben Quayle.
Yeah,
Kevin Yoder.
That's right. Well, and it's still not outside the possibility that Trump gets the popular vote.
Yeah. There's some people prognosticating that today.
And if you put a gun to my head, I would lean.
Put a gun to your head.
Thank you. I would lean towards the Trump landslide.
You would.
Yeah.
And what sort of tea leaves?
So I think the thing that I look at, and the thing that's consistently been the thing that I keep going back to is where Trump has been performing in the polls, both nationally and in the swing states, as compared to 2016 and 2020.
Yes.
And on this day, 4 years ago and 8 years ago, he was not leading anywhere except Iowa.
Great point.
Or Ohio. The only place he was leading was Ohio. He might have been leading slightly in Arizona in 2016 at this point by like 0.4. So, but in 2020, he was not leading anywhere. And he is leading on the averages. If you look at the averages, he's leading in almost all the swing states.
By 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, or he might be down like a point. But that, if there's any bit of a polling problem, like there has been in the past, then I think that's the tipping point. Now, some have argued that pollsters might actually be overstating Trump's numbers because they don't want to make the same mistakes as before. But what I was looking at is that there are most pollsters are polling Arizona, for example, at a +7 Republican advantage, but we're at 8.5 on the early ballots, and I'm sorry, but there aren't enough Democrats left to change that dynamic on election day. We could get to more than 9 point the Republican.
The enthusiasm. We talked about this in other podcasts, and that is the enthusiasm gap. And we saw a little bit of that leading up to this election. And definitely the enthusiasm, the motivation is on Trump's side, much more so than on the Democratic side. I would think.
I think that's true because when I look at so there's been a lot of whenever you see a big, robust Kamala Harris rally, there's also some famous person, Beyonce, Cardi B, Oprah.
That is true.
Whereas Trump, Trump is Trump. He is the main star of his event.
Well, and there's some criticism of some of those famous people, and that is that they're actually being paid to be there.
Well, maybe they are. I mean,
I think that has been the most robust criticism of some.
And if they are being paid to be there, then good for them for getting the bucks out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the swing states, it's going to be really interesting. You had John Fetterman on Rogan over the weekend, was one of the last interviews he did, and he painted a pretty robust picture of the Trump movement within Pennsylvania. And he just felt like that Trump was leading and Trump was probably going to take Pennsylvania because of the same issues that he saw in 2015, 2016 when he was volunteering for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And that was Trump, and his message really resonates within the rural areas better than anything that Kamala Harris and her people are doing. And that's been the case for some time. And he has led in Pennsylvania, now has taken a fairly, a 2 point lead in Pennsylvania. Everyone now is looking at how Michigan and Wisconsin goes. And I go back to that union vote in Michigan. A lot of people they're not quite sure where Michigan will go. That union vote, especially the UAW and the Teamsters, 60%, 70% of their members are supporting Trump to the point where neither union would come out and endorse
Yeah.
That says something about what's happening in Michigan. And then this whole play for the Muslim vote, and you have a whole slew of Muslim politicians that are now endorsing Trump. That says something as well.
Well, and what's interesting is that there for a little while, Wisconsin was seen as Harris's weak point on the blue wall, whereas numbers in the last few days, if you point out Pennsylvania's tied, Michigan's basically tied, and
Yeah.
she's up slightly in Wisconsin based on these last little bit of polls. But so one of the things we wanted to do today was just to give our listeners and viewers just a little, blow by blow of how it's going to unfold on election night. So the first,
And you brought notes.
I brought notes because because I'm not going to be able to memorize
No.
those. The first polls that close are 7 p.m. Eastern, and that's Virginia and Georgia. Now, I'm only going to focus primarily on states that have some impact on either the Senate or the presidential election. There might be some congressional races to watch, but and then 7:30 West Virginia closes. That will be the
That'll be a bell.
that'll be the 50. At that point at 7:30 will be a 50-50 Senate.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Well, now
between 7 and 8, depending on what part of Ohio and North Carolina and New Hampshire, you'll have polls closing. Then that's between 7 and 8 Eastern. And then at 8 o'clock Eastern, Pennsylvania closes. New Jersey, no real meaning. Maine, interesting because of the one electoral college vote, potentially. Maryland, that's interesting because, we got to see what happens with the Senate race.
Yeah, I
there.
don't see a lot of movement there.
I mean,
I think the most interesting Senate race in the states that you mentioned was Ohio, and now the
Yeah.
RCP average has Reno up just half a point.
Half a point. Wow. And then,
That has swung dramatically.
right.
Last
And
as we
Michigan,
knew it would.
Michigan comes in at two different time zones, 8 and 9. And then at 9 o'clock is a big one because then it's New Mexico, it's Colorado, it's Arizona, it's New York, it's Iowa, it's Minnesota, it's Nebraska, New Mexico. Did I say New Mexico? I said New Mexico twice. I'm not saying New Mexico's there, but, there's a Senate race there that nobody's been paying attention to.
No, but
Trump went there. We don't know
you
why.
feel that you're winning, and you feel that you have a commanding lead, which Trump has kind of been projecting over the last month. Then you start trying to expand the map, and it's really interesting. We brought it up at the last podcast how the Harris campaign pulled $2 million roughly out of North Carolina, is spending it desperately in Virginia and New Hampshire. I spoke with some friends of ours in New Hampshire, and they are very forthright about the fact that Kelly Ayotte is going to win that governor's race. She's not necessarily a friend of Trump's.
Right.
However, that says something.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
New Hampshire could be in play.
It's interesting to me that Harris pulled money out of North Carolina while at the same time Trump is spending more time in North Carolina than any other state in the last 48 hours of the campaign.
Yeah. Just to maybe to shore
Threw it up.
I believe he's in Virginia too, apparently.
Yeah. So, and then 10 p.m. Eastern, Montana closes, and Nevada. Those are two big ones for the Senate, and Nevada obviously for the presidential potentially. And then 11 o'clock Eastern is when California closes. Only mention those because of the House races that are there. Now, speaking of the House, this is where you want to be paying attention early in the evening to see this will give you a sense of, is the House headed towards the Republicans keeping it or losing it?
Well, I don't know why. I'm glad you bring that up because I don't know why I looked at this morning, but I looked at the generic ballot and the Republicans are up by 2 points. In the generic
And they're
ballot.
typically never up.
They're never up. Even the years they win.
And here in Arizona, the legislature's up. The Republican legislature's up, which is not usual. So the House races to watch in the early states that will go earliest is Virginia. The two to watch in Virginia are Virginia 2 and Virginia 9, then North Carolina 1, and New York 19. If those go Republican,
Virginia 2 now is where? Do you know?
that's like just south of
DC.
yeah.
That's Leesburg and all that.
Yeah, it's a swing. It's a swing.
That's where our good friend John Desser lives.
Yeah.
So
And
hopefully
then
he's doing everything he can to stop
Right.
those ballots.
and then and then 2 in California you can watch later are 13 and 22. But the 4 to watch carefully early. And frankly, here in Arizona, we'll know Schweikert pretty early, I think, because if he's anywhere close or leading with the early ballots in CD1, then he's got it,
Yeah.
because it's only going to
He won't be
get
sweating out.
And that's the thing.
Like last time.
That's part of why I think, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the last episode, but Arizona closes at 10 Eastern, 8 o'clock local, because daylight savings is not going anymore, so we're not 3 hours anymore. But we get the first results of the first basically 2 million ballots cast. Those results will come out the first few minutes after 8 p.m.
Well, and thankfully, Chris Starwell from Fox News, formerly from Fox News, will be calling Arizona early like he did last time.
What was it? Sarwart's call?
It was Starwell's call. And I don't know if you remember, but we were actually texting with somebody at Fox News at the time saying, this is wrong. The polls haven't closed. He can't call it now because people are still in fact, you had sent me a text saying people are still in line.
Yeah, people are still in line
to vote.
Yeah.
He can't call it now.
Because they called it right at 7 o'clock Arizona time.
Yeah.
Well, did they call it at 7?
Yeah, it was like
That
right
late?
around 7, and people were still in line waiting to vote.
Which
And
is-
what that does is it just, when people see that on their phones or whatever else, it discourages them that they leave.
Right. But what will happen is, I think Trump's going to win Arizona. I think Trump wins the early vote, or comes really close. Keep in mind, he was way down in 2020 and came back over the few days afterwards. But if he's, within a couple of points or leading at the first drop of ballots, you can call Arizona for Trump. It could be that Arizona is the first swing state called for the election.
That would be amazing.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see it. Again, that enthusiasm is going to play a big part in this election.
Well, and so all of that, it's going to be a wild night, I'm sure. It's going to be swings up and down. There's half the country's going to be despondent, half the country's going to be ecstatic.
Hopefully, we're too big to rig.
Yeah.
That's an interesting slogan, but I think it's correct.
Yeah. But I would say, regardless of where you come down on this, because somebody's going to be unhappy. I posted some thoughts about this on our Substack, posted it on Twitter.
It'll be on LinkedIn.
It'll be on LinkedIn.
It will be on LinkedIn in its entirety.
And this is just a op-ed that I put together that says, look, the country will stand. We are resilient. We'll withstand all of the garbage that goes on, all of the issues that'll happen. It's a tiny fraction of the American people for the most part. We're going to continue to be a great nation. And, we'll face whatever struggles we face as a result of whoever gets elected. But in 4 more years, we'll do it all again.
Well, in 2 years.
2 years. In 2 years, we'll have another.
Congress is up again, and then we've got a big governor's race here in the state of Arizona, and that's anyone's guess.
So
it's going to pan out.
Folks, we'll have plenty to talk about. We'll be back on Thursday to give you the post-election analysis.
Either the post-election hangover or the post-election celebration.
Or the post-election, we don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know yet. Yeah.
But anyway.
The post-election lawfare that will begin during that time. That is actually one thing that you can probably just bet money on, is that both sides are lawyered up.
They're lawyered up.
Completely. I think it'll go quicker this year than in the past, because I think they're fighting things as they come up.
Yeah.
And they're winning or losing as they come up. The Trump team in 2020 was completely left blindsided and unprepared for the realities.
Which is why it got so crazy.
Happens.
Now they've got actual lawyers that know what they're doing. For the most part, we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah.
But all right, folks.
All right, here we go.
Happy voting.
It's going to be interesting.
Take care.
God bless.
See ya.
Take care.